It's Marianne Hobbs. You're locked on BBC Radio 6 Music, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome ANOHNI to our programme. She's going to be hanging out with us all weekend. ANOHNI, it's such a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, thank you, Marianne. I appreciate it.
Can we begin by talking a little bit about your early life, your childhood? I believe you spent your formative years growing up in Chichester, right?
That's true. I was born in Chichester in West Sussex, and I spent time there till I was 7, then we moved to Holland and then back to Chichester, and then we moved to California when I was 10 and moved around various other places in California until I moved to New York when I was 19.
Take me back to the early days. What do you remember about England?
Well, England's where my family live, so, my extended family. So I mostly remember just the experience of being, immersed in an extended family, because that was something that you lose when you leave the country. And I remember the South Downs, because we used to walk on the Downs a lot. My dad used to carry me on his shoulders across the Downs, and just all the normal things, going to school, blah, blah, blah.
Did you enjoy it? Were you a good pupil?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was a very creative kid, so I was always working on, different kinds of projects. So long ago. So long ago. I remember television, it was the late 70s, and I was watching, there's a lot of good things on television in those days.
What shows did you love on TV?
Well, Top of the Pops was really good because there was really good, some really interesting things happening in music. I mean, as there always are, but as a kid, just out of the box, it seemed really exciting.
Everybody seems to always have a pivotal moment watching David Bowie on Top of the Pops, actually, when they were a kid.
That was past my time, I was sort of the next generation, watching the people that were inspired by David Bowie,
I understand that you've been using ANOHNI privately for some time, haven't you? What made you feel that it was the right time to make this very kind of permanent public change?
I took on the name ANOHNI maybe, actually it's been in my mind for like 15 years, and but it's been a slow evolution, and it was something I just tried very privately amongst friends and then extended it to my family, and now I was just at a point where I don't really identify as Antony anymore, so I just thought, well, it seems like a natural progression to shift my public name to the same thing, and it's just like a spirit name, I've always described myself as transgender, and it's always been a little bit confusing that I've had this kind of male moniker, but I didn't really have a better idea, and I just got to a point where I wanted to choose a spirit name for myself that more accurately represented my sense of myself, So this was a name that just kind of emerged over the course of many years for me. And I grew to love it. And I really identify in my private life, 100% of the time as ANOHNI. So, people say Antony, sometimes I don't even know. I forget they're talking to me, But of course, in the public eye, it probably can take a little while for people. And the fact that my band's name is Antony and the Johnsons, which I'm starting to think of as a name for my band, but not necessarily my name. So, but who knows? I'm just following along, following my nose really. I don't have like a game plan.
Yeah, I hear that. I love the idea of an actual spirit name. That's beautiful. It suggests a real kind of freedom.
Yeah, I think it's pretty typical for a transgender person to, at some point, sort of choose a name that they feel, sort of accurately represents them. And people go through all sorts of different versions of that process, but people have been doing it since the dawn of creation. It's not just trans people that do that, sometimes other kinds of, other people do it too,
Yeah. Do you feel that we're turning a bit of a corner, I suppose, in the UK and the US, and the trans community at large? They're finding a great deal more empathy.
I don't know if it's empathy or just people being. Yeah, I guess I think you're right. Maybe. Yeah, I think people have been. People are certainly more open to the conversation than they were when I came back with "I'm a Bird Now." Where the conversation could be quite. Could be quite degrading in a way, like the kinds of questions that people would ask you if you tell them you're transgender in a newspaper article. It was quite a struggle, to have to sort of drag people through it, to try to shed some light on it. But now it's like doors just sort of falling open. I'm noticing this time around, like people are open and ready to, and I think even kind of excited to try it on for size, like. So I mean, that's great. It's great news. I mean, it's one less thing we have to focus on, so that we can focus on more important things in a way,
Yeah, I hear that.
The sooner that we're not like preoccupied with each other's gender politics or identity politics, the sooner we can address like the issues that are affecting all of us.
Let's talk a little bit about the new single 4 Degrees, written all about the perils of climate change. There is a real brutality in that lyrical message, isn't there? A kind of head-on confrontation, I guess, with our selfishness as the human race.
Well, I sing the song in the first person, so it's more, it's presenting that I'm taking inventory of my own feelings,
Yeah.
and sometimes I wrestle with the disparity between my intention and like the impact of my behaviors, and the fact that I'm still very much a participant in like a fossil fuel burning society, and and I'm benefiting from that and enjoying the comfort of that, and so that's at odds with like the narrative that I tell myself, the story that I tell myself about my intentions, and even in my work there's been a lot of grieving and identifying my own sadness about the changing biosphere, and the mass extinction of so many different kinds of species, and the kind of the eradication of biodiversity and collapsing ocean, and the boiling world, global boiling, but I wanted to try on a different kind of approach, so something a little bit more reckless and maybe a bit more honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I found a brilliant quote from Tolstoy, actually. Everyone thinks of changing the world. Nobody thinks of changing himself.
Right, yeah, and I think that is what I'm facing, is what's my part in this? It's like, it's so easy for us to point a finger, and there's plenty of fingers to be pointed, but it's like we're all complicit, especially in the first world, in the Western world, we're all complicit. So I wanted to do, I had this idea to do a dance record, to do something that was very, sort of very seductive to the ear, something really exciting, something kind of exuberant, and to contrast that with very intense lyrics. Not for the sake of being intense, but lyrics that really reflect the way that I'm thinking these days and the things that I'm thinking about. Something that was more transparent than my other work. My other work has been quite pastoral in a way, and this new record is really full frontal. It's very much about now, and very much what I'm thinking about now and how I'm feeling now. I think the reason I want to do it as a dance record is just because it's a kind of an exuberant feeling to tell the truth, There's the exuberance of telling the truth as best as you can, and sort of kind of an exciting feeling, like taking a risk. I'd done some dance stuff with a group called Hercules and Love Affair a few years ago. I did a song called Blind, and that was so much fun. And, I was really inspired by a lot of dance music from when I was a kid, bands like Yazoo and Al Samoye singing, to Vince Clarke's arrangements, like really soulful voice with a really cold, melodic dance track, which is kind of like the recipe for early 80s English synth pop. And some aspects of the aesthetics of that era have returned into pop music, although it's much more cranked up now. Everything is so maximal in a lot of pop production today, And I just wanted to see if I could appropriate some of that vibe and put my own spin on it, but also try to speak my truth and participate as vigorously as I can in a cultural conversation. So to kind of challenge the medium as well. It's a pretty intense record. I've finished it now, and it's by far the most kind of intense record I've ever made. And I'm really, really proud of it. I love it. In fact, probably more than any record I've ever made. And we've been working on it for a long time, like 3 years, and I mean, not continuously, but it's taken a long time for me to sort of get clarity about what exactly I wanted to put forward and what I was willing to put forward. And I started off just collaborating with Daniel Lowe Patton from Oneohtrix Point Never because I'd done a remix for one of his songs a few years ago called Returnal.
Mm-hmm.
And we became friends, and he did a remix for me for my last Johnson's record, Swan Lights, which was just so great. And I love his style. I mean, chops things up and reconfigures them. It's almost like a cut-up collage of sound at times, but like with a really strong emotional lead through it. And he's just got a really brilliant mind. And we were experimenting with setting some of my songs to electronic soundtracks. But it wasn't until really I hooked up with Hudson. I'd reached out to him and told him that I liked his music. I'd liked it for a long time because it's just so iconic, you know, like he hits these really iconic, kind of majestic. It's subtle, but it's everything pushing 200% in one direction, which is just really exciting to me, like just to push something to such an extreme, you know. So I wrote him an email and just said, I think your stuff is great. And then he wrote me back and said, oh, well, will you sing on my record? I'm making a record. And I said, yeah, of course. So he sent me 6 options, different tracks that he'd been working on. And in the space of like a few days, I responded to like all 6 of them. I was supposed to just choose one. And I was like, well, you can have one of these for your record, and then the other 5 are for mine. and we were like, oh my God, like this is actually really working. Like it was what I needed, you know?
Yeah.
Then we were really off to the races. Then it was like going back and forth to all of us, Daniel and Hudson and me, kind of going around and sort of developing the tracks and to what it is now.
That's really interesting to hear you talk about the way that clearly they've completely changed your writing patterns too, right?
Well, in the old days, I would sit down with a piano and sort of, you know, bang out a song, or not bang it out, but it, you know, it was always a relationship to an instrument for me. And there's been a lot of freedom for me in being able to, in some instances on this record, respond to other people's like song structures and then just lay the lead vocal and the lead melody over it. It's a very immediate and rewarding process. And it also pushes me in different directions, you know, because I was always sort of confined by chord progressions that I would put together, you know, melodically. So responding to someone else's chord progressions, I have a totally different take on, just a totally different impulse comes out of me, you know. It's really was so fun. Like I just love doing it, you know. It's like the most fun, the creative part, and then the arduous part is just like all the tiny decisions, you know. It just goes on. And I did a lot of engineering on this record too, so I was a lot working just by myself, like editing the tiniest details and vocals and things like that.
Yeah. I believe there are 2 shows in July at the Barbican on the 7th and the 8th, and I read that you've got some pretty radical plans for the live performance and that you'd actually like to explore separating your voice from your body.
Yeah, I mean, it's still in development, so I'm not actually sure how that's going to manifest, but yeah, I have an idea. You know, I was really inspired by groups like there was this band in the early 90s called Black Box. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah, I do.
But they were so brilliant, and it was Martha Wash like singing. She'd been brought in to sing background vocals, and they'd used all her her voice for all the lead vocals. And then they hired this gorgeous, I think she was a French model, to lip sync all the songs for the music videos. And it was kind of a scandal, you know, like after the record had sold out 9 million copies. You know, people realized that this gorgeous model wasn't the singer, that it was actually this like really classic American singer, you know, with a totally different kind of, you know, she was a totally different vision. She was one of the Weather Girls. But it was kind of intriguing, and it was viewed as problematic. You know, there was a few different kinds of scandals like that where the body didn't end up matching the voice. But I was always really pleased with with that dynamic, and I guess in some ways it matches my own, you know, it talks to some of my own discomfort, you know, as a live performer too, that and also talks to some of my personal, you know, issues around my own identity that, you know, that I've long been seeking to transform or even transcend my body. I think in my work, a lot of it is quite aspirational in that regard, like taking comfort in one's essence. You know what I mean? And I think with this record, you know, the whole thing is a bit of a Trojan horse. You know, it's like there's a voice inside this very different these very different trappings, like very pop, very exciting, like tracks, and then I started to think, well, what's the equivalent of that in a live show, you know? So that's what we're exploring now. Also, this idea, you know, for a long time I've been working with this idea of kind of multiple identities within a performer. You know, with I'm a Bird now, it was always the idea of like a family of voices inside me. And then I did this concert series called Turning at the Barbican in 2006, something we'd done in 2004 in New York. And we toured it all around Europe, where there was 13 models, each standing on a turning platform on the side of the stage, and we were generating these live video projections of her portraits of her face that were projected behind me as I was singing. You know, it was almost like I was giving voice to each of their facades, and also this idea of almost like a collective body, or you know, a body that was more than just the singer's body. In a way, also, like, the thing that I have to offer is voice, you know. That's the element of the live performance that I bring to the table. And I just wondered, like, what happens when you start to sort of abstract the voice from the body and stop making the assumption that it has to be your body standing on stage in order to put the music across in a live situation. So I'm not sure where that's going to take me, but that's what we're developing now. We're working on all sorts of different things with all sorts of different people to see what's effective and what's exciting. So I don't know what the show's going to entail, to be honest. But you probably, I'm not sure how much of me you'll actually see, but you'll hear a lot of me.
I'd love to talk to you a little bit about your drawing as well. I believe there's an exhibition in Germany coming up next year.
Yeah, I've been working on drawing for like a few years now. Like, you know, I had some shows in like 2007 or something, and it's always been another track of self-expression that I've pursued like in my life, and it slowly developed more momentum. And yeah, I was asked to do this exhibition at a museum in Germany, which actually is opening in July, and so they had me doing a residency in Berlin for the last 2 months, and I'm going back probably to Berlin in the spring to work some more. And I've really actually quite loved Berlin, and kind of seeing it with new eyes. So that's something else that I'm working on. It's a source of really great pleasure for me. You know, like I just love drawing.
Well, listen, thank you so much for being with us. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you. Would you choose a tune for us?
Okay, yeah, let me think for a second. Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Well, you know who my favorite singer is right now is this boy from Minnesota. I think he's changed his name now to Corbin, but his name used to be Lil Spook. He's this kid who has the most soulful voice, and usually I wouldn't ever listen to a person like this, his music, but like I've been listening to it pretty much all the time. Let me see if this one's a good one. Hold on. Oh yeah, Break My Heart.
Every mark, counting every look at what a kiss made. I thought that I could be saved by you. Never thought I'd be betrayed by you. Girl, you can take my life as long as it's your knife. I'm alright. Just let me say goodnight one last time before you close my eyes. To my head, let me go, so I can see how you really know how perfect you